And we are live. So we have had 40 minutes of technical difficulties, but we've made it. So good morning, BSB. Great to be here. This morning I've got a guest in the studio. And when I say studio, I mean my office with stuff all over it. The man we're speaking with today is a gentleman by the name of Matt Stewart. Now, if you live in Brisbane and you've driven along the Riverside Expressway and you've seen the eyes staring at you on the columns there, then you'd be familiar with Matt's work. Now, I would love to take this all the way back, and for people that have never met you, but perhaps driven past your artwork as people here in Brisbane, Matty, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Of course, yeah. Thank you for having me, Scott.
Pleasure.
I'm Matt Stewart. I'm a contemporary fine artist, and I have lived in Brisbane all my life and recently moved to the Sunshine Coast, but still refer to myself as a Brisbaneite. I produce canvas artworks in the studio. I produce limited edition art prints, and I also paint murals for business, for residential, external, internal, really just a all-around creative person.
And that I've certainly seen lots of over the years. But, you know, Matty, you don't just start out painting murals. Take me all the way back. Like, where did this start? Like, were you a young fellow? Like, where did the love of art come from?
Yeah, definitely. I think like with all these, these sort of creative pursuits that turn into a career, there's always some sort of little fire that's lit very early in one's life. And I've, from the very word go, I've loved drawing. I remember being very young and loving coloring in, loving drawing, loving creating things visually. And then all through primary school, high school, I sort of furthered that and then got out of high school. And I think from my parents' point of view, turning that creativity into something that was monetizable.
Art's not a real job.
It's not. No,
and that's your problem.
No.
And I get that because again, I was told photography, not a bloody chance.
Yeah.
What idiot would do that as a job? I mean, that's just dumb.
Yeah.
And I think that's the tough part as a parent is you try to get your kids to, oh God, make a decision where they're not going to like immeasurably suffer and not get paid for what they do.
I mean, we can laugh at that now looking back in hindsight. It's you do it's a big gamble. Like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? But I think if you have that inside you, and there's something deep down that you just know that at some point it's going to tick over and turn into something tangible.
Well, you can't stop it. That's the problem.
Exactly.
Like if you want to make stuff, if there's something inside you that just burns like a fire, you can't stop it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And my favorite part there was that these days when people go, oh, what do you do? I'm like, mate, I'm a coloring in guy.
Yeah.
Like you give me a box of Crayola, and that's my job.
Yeah,
It always gets a cheap laugh.
Yeah, I do get mixed responses when because if you're out in a scenario where you're meeting new people and they ask, it's either there's the one person that's really excited and wants to know every detail about it, and there's the second type of person that almost looks down on you going, oh, good on you.
Oh, you do art. So what you're telling me is you're very poor.
Yeah.
And you live in a house with 7 other people in West End.
Yeah.
And you do art. I'm like, And look, obviously at the start of any creative journey, that is actually what it looks like.
Oh, 100%.
And like, tell me, so, after school, which direction did you go? What did you follow?
Yeah. So, as I was saying, my parents, could see that there was that passion in me, but, sort of directed me towards something where I could actually monetize it. So I went into graphic design, which in 1996, 97 was very different to how it is these days. There was no do-it-yourself apps or platforms or anything like that. It was if you wanted a logo design, you went to an advertising agency or you went to an independent graphic designer. So that was the career path that I started on.
And were you doing that? So at that point, I mean, this is early computer days, early Photoshop days in relative terms.
Yeah.
And particularly in a commercial setting. Was that like hand drawing or was that early Photoshop?
I was at the very end of hand drawing with software being sort of 2 to 3 years into it. So I was working on Photoshop 1 and 2,
Nice.
and and typesetting ads for the Career Mail, like physically cutting the letters out and setting. Yeah, absolutely. I got the very, very last of that, probably the first 6 to 8 months in my graphic design.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like right from, because I actually work with a guy who, they've got a family agency, so multi-generational. And he was telling me that like in the 80s, his first job in that business was like they would lay up the ad, like by hand, cut the things out.
Yeah. It's very archaic.
And then he would jump in the car with that, hand, glued on arts and crafts style, take that over to the client to get, any changes or anything. And I'm like, yeah, what?
100%. I worked at I was lucky enough to go straight out of design college straight into a company called TPR. Let's see. Came work for Scott. Into an ad agency in the Valley. So we did a lot of very high-end clients, like a hell of a lot of newspaper advertising back then in the Career Mail when that was large and trusted and number one. So yeah, exactly. It was they'd make a change to a headline, so we'd change it on the computer using Illustrator or Quark Express. If anyone ever remembers that, you'd print it out, cut it out, reset the headline, and then fax it through to them, and they'd approve it, and then off it would go to the Career Mail.
Now, do you know my other favorite thing? When I'd go to my dad's office and they'd fax each other jokes.
Yeah.
That was one of my favorite.
It's like the original meme.
Mate, the original memes.
Yeah.
They were like taking things out of the paper and faxing those jokes to each other. I actually thought that was the best.
It's awesome. We
are actually missing that. Imagine that going over to your fax machine.
Yeah.
So, okay. So you're using Quark, you're using Photoshop 1.
Yeah.
You've got a real job that's still kind of art.
Yeah.
How did that progress?
I worked in that ad agency for I think 3 years, and then decided to go out and do my own thing because I could just see that, the potential of one thing I always gravitated towards was logo design. And branding. I just thought that the way that you can create, a singular image that portrays so much about a company or a brand, that's always just been ingrained in me, and I just love that sort of thing. So I went out on my own and started doing my own thing. So that's the first time I worked for myself, and basically just doing logo design and branding for small and medium businesses.
See, that's pretty wild. Do you remember any of those businesses? What sort of things were you doing? Were they?
I don't
stretch your mind, Matty. I know TVs are in black and white there.
Yeah, pretty much. I actually don't remember any of them. Like, I mean, just like like local small, like an air conditioning business, an electrician. I remember doing a whole heap of. This was something really cool. I was maybe 6 months into it, and I had a guy that built hot rods. It was based down in Loganholme, and he wanted me to design a whole heap of and illustrate a whole heap of hot rods that he would then turn into screen prints for t-shirts and sell them at all these events. So that is wicked. Yeah, it's awesome. So back then I was like sketching all these really cool hot rods and and using doing it manually, not even with software. Yeah.
So that's actually really cool.
Yeah. I've always loved drawing and loved, coloring in. And even now with my daughter, like I was doing that the other day, I just, you spend 5 minutes doing it and going, I actually love this. I wish I could do this all the time. Yeah.
It's pretty good, isn't it? And have you taught her to stay in the lines yet?
She's 3.5. She's still, I'm trying to color inside the lines and she'll come along and just, go straight over the top. Oh, that's lovely.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. So you've gone out on your own. How did that go?
It went really well. Like I ended up building the business. It was a great little business. Like had a little home office. I didn't need a lot of room. It was all about work-life balance. I was enjoying it. And then along came a little twist, which is one that really sort of skewed my career, but one that's actually I'm very thankful for. At the time I was buying a little Mini Cooper S. So I ordered it from a BMW dealership in Brisbane, and then just got really friendly with the salesperson there. And we'd keep in touch, and you're building a car, and you're getting updates on how it would all go, and you'd go down to the dealership and have a coffee with them and chat to them, and this went on. I think the car took 6 or 7 months from the time I ordered to delivery. So this went on. I received the car and then had it for a number of months, maybe even 6 months after that, and then still kept in touch with this salesperson who ran the Mini showroom, and then we became friends. And then just through chatting, he said, "Oh, look, I'm moving into a higher position within the dealership. Would you ever be interested in coming and working for the brand?" I'd never been a salesperson per se, even though we sell in our businesses every day in different types of ways. But something I'd never thought of. I sort of balked at the idea to begin with. I said, "Look, I've never done this. I don't know anything about it." And he said, "Everything about the product, the product back to front. You're probably even better than me. That's the main thing. You just have fun with it." So I packed the business up that I had built and ran, and went and became a car salesman, and for Mini, like Mini the brand. Different direction.
And how long were you there? Because this is kind of the cool story. This is where Maddie's story and my story intersect.
Yeah.
How long were you there?
In the deal,
in dealership land.
2006 through to, so maybe 4 years. In total. Yeah.
Because this is where Matt and my stories intersect. Because what was crazy was I have a not dissimilar story where I also have terrible taste in vehicles. And I had a 1989 long wheelbase 735 IL. So if you know your BMWs, that is, the long wheelbase 7 Series from the 80s.
The lounge chair on wheels.
Mate, lounge chair on wheels.
Yeah.
Best part about that was I remember pulling the seats out, and stamped underneath was like East and West Germany. So, mate, we're talking, before the fall of the Berlin Wall, some of those parts were made. But I had this car, and I came down to, and, look, I think it's appropriate, shout out to Motorline, because without them, our paths never would have crossed. And I came in the same way, where I was actually there. I think it was a BMW club function or something. I can't remember, but I brought the 7 Series down there, and same thing, got talking to them, and it was exactly the same story. They just loved the passion. They loved the, knowledgeable about the brand, really enjoyed it, was just happy to be around it. And I ended up getting, a junior marketing job there as a little assistant while Matty was working in Mini.
Yeah.
And that was the beginning of a beautiful story.
Absolutely. Yep. That's probably 14, 15 years ago.
Yeah, it's going back now.
Yeah.
That's all the way back.
Yeah.
And I guess the thing I remember from the time was obviously I met you and I went, what a legend. And I also remember seeing your artwork. I remember at that stage you doing canvas artwork. I in particular remember at your place you had I'm sure it was a red couch. It was some just ridiculous colored leather, or was it blue?
Oh, it was blue.
Oh, mate,
it was electric blue. It was crazy.
Whatever it was, it offended,
so ridiculous now, but then it was cool.
It offended my eyeballs. But you had this artwork there that actually had it had the zip. And I remember that integrated into it. I remember that piece of art on your wall, and I just remember looking at that and going, "Man, that's a talented dude." And you were there selling cars.
Yeah, I think while I was selling cars, I never really lost that creative side. Whenever we did any functions or anything like that, I always wanted to be. I still had my Apple laptop. I still did creative work for it and so forth, and for customers. And I'd always painted canvas artworks, but then put that on hold for a couple of years, and then just decided to pick that up again and start playing around. And exactly as you said, they were for me.
Yeah,
I'd paint them and just hang them on the walls, and then
just needed to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Because let me see if I remember this story correctly. We'll see if we have a similar recollection here. was that I remember talking to you and you telling me you're a graphic designer. And I can't remember if you were sort of thinking about doing something different or, because you'd been there for a bit at that stage.
Mhm.
And I sort of said to you, would you do design in-house? Like, would you step away from
I
the
actually
sales
I
team
remember that exact conversation. Yeah.
and would you come over to the marketing team? Because I'd seen what you did
Mhm.
and I'm like, what a gun. And we got on really well. And I thought this could be a really good working
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, as I said, I remember that very, very clearly. It was a little bit of both. It was probably 3/4 of you saying that, and me really thinking about it. And I think at that point in time, I was in 2007, the new Mini. So we had the first generation, then they bought the slightly bigger one out, and that was bigger and better, and the engine was amazing, and there were the excitement around it was amazing, the launch, and then a few months leading up, or a few months after the launch, people were just like scrambling to get it, and it wasn't really, I think for me, it wasn't really an actual traditional pounding the pavement sales job. On a Saturday, I'd have 10 people lined up just to take an order.
orders.
And you'd have fun with them. And I think once that started to slow down, and then you really got into that divisive, like almost like grind of a sales job, I started to realize that wasn't me. I didn't want to do the things that you needed to do, and not to take anything away from any salespeople, but there's an element of it that you kind of have to bend the truth a little bit, for all those sorts of things.
It can be a hard grind.
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that it didn't really sit well with me. So I think when you came to me, I was almost thinking, oh, I don't know, like and it was starting to kill my creative inner, and all those sorts of things.
Well, because you go from a hero on the 30th if you've hit your targets or exceeded your targets, and then you're back to zero on the
next day.
Mate, like the sale, and I've always looked at that and gone, sales in that capacity is a brutal game. Where that is your only role. And over a long duration. That does take a special sort of.
It does. It takes
toughness.
A certain person, and the people that excel in that, they're very, very different to you and I. And that's, that's who they are. They're amazing at it. They have that special skill set.
Absolutely. And mate, you need that.
Mm-hmm.
But okay. So
we have that conversation
you've been ahead. You've sort of, well, we both remember it in the same sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I've thrown that out to you. You've been ready to make that change. I think that was the start of, I guess, a really magical time. I remember that time very, very fondly, where, you and I would just, there was an energy to it. And I guess we've always had that.
Absolutely.
Where, we're very similar, but very different, but almost the same. You have terrible taste and you like Apple Macs. I obviously understand that Windows and Android are superior. So, there's
How long did it take to get this set up this morning?
there's a real yin and yang, to this relationship, as well as, just the friendly abuse and banter. Because I just remember that being like a super creative time, where we did like some really incredible stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Pushing the boundaries of what a traditional car dealership would do for events. That's the thing that I really remember. And a lot of that was driven by yourself. I mean, you can go into a couple of these things.
Again, that's just because I'm mad. I was very fortunate where I was given the opportunity to sort of run with a few things.
We had a young dealer principal who was very open-minded to doing those sorts of things. And
he was like, let her rip.
Yeah.
And, some of the things we did, like the stuff, the massive events out at the Polo and, the scale that we blew those up to. And my other favorite was like the X5.
Destroyed 5 or 6 brand new X5s.
That X5, I rolled their Land Cruiser.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that story.
I do, yeah.
That was a good one. Put it over on its side.
Yeah.
As we were building out a path.
Yeah.
For the new X5s. That was actually one of the coolest events we've ever done. And I just have beautiful memories of that time where, we were given sort of the capacity to just create and do really extraordinary things. And I learned so much through that, and I got to do just the craziest stuff. And I also just I loved working for BMW as a global brand.
Yeah. You felt proud working for that
man,
brand.
so proud.
Yeah.
Like so proud of the product. It was a really formative time as well for them. You know, they developed, you know, the turbocharged engines. I remember 335 coming out. Like there was just really cool stuff.
Yeah. I feel they've
happening.
fallen off the wagon a little bit.
Yeah.
But around that time, absolutely, that sort of like 10-year period, they were the masters and they were number one.
Was wild. And it's hard to think of now, but like Audi was very much the third brand, you know, which is extraordinary. It was very much, you know, Mercedes versus BMW, and like they were, you know, way over there.
Long way back. Mercedes was still an old man's car.
Yeah, Mercedes was an old man's car. And then, you know, the BMW was an exciting car. And I guess that was an exciting time. But here's the crazy thing. And I read this, how with all their new designs, they actually aim to be divisive. And the goal is actually to make you go, oh, what? Because
does that?
I had the moment where obviously the new M3 was certainly very polarizing. I drove past one on the freeway and I found myself staring at it and going, I quite like that. Whereas I remember seeing those giant nostrils and going,
you know what's funny? I actually liked that from the very beginning.
Oh God.
It was very polarizing, but I looked at it and went, even though I've kind of almost flipped, and I look at Mercedes now and just think from an aesthetic point of view,
you're
like
an old man now.
Yeah, true. Especially the AMG models, there's that the creativity that they use in their branding and their marketing, right? Like from Formula One all the way down. It's perfect. I mean, from an advertising and branding point of view, Mercedes are number one
since the C63 AMG.
Yeah.
Man, that was the game changer, to put like a big stonking unit into a sensible car, which, let's be honest, is my favorite thing. Because in my opinion, and I'll ram this opinion onto anybody, automotive design peaked at the E39 M5 in the late 90s with the 4-door V8 manual. So you can take all your friends out with you. The style, I've to this day, I don't think I've ever seen a more beautiful.
That is a beautiful car,
polished car. Mate, E39 M5.
Yeah,
chef's kiss. So mildly off track. So wild times there. After that, so obviously we both, you know, I departed there before you left a bit after, and you know that was around the time, like, mate, I left there and went and worked at a florist, just because I sort of needed a whole reset and was trying to figure out what I wanted to do next, because I really didn't know. But I knew I wanted to do this. And so I actually ended up having to work some other jobs along the way, which actually ended up being super awesome, while I was getting TPR off the ground, because obviously I had a mortgage to pay. And when you're making like $1, I think our whole first year, I think we made 10 grand, was like our entire billings for 12 months. What did you do after there? I'm trying to remember.
You can't remember?
No, my brain's broken.
I went to while I was still at Motorline, we did the Mini Clubman launch, which if anyone remembers, like it had the barn doors at the back. They still sell them, but the original one that they bought out was really cool. It was still small, and the little barn doors at the back. So we did a launch at a company in Wollongabba called Fifth Corner Technologies.
It's all coming back to me.
So they still do specialize in home automation, audio visual, and so forth. And they have a warehouse in Deshan Street in Wollongabba, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn. I'm sure they still do have all this, but at the time when we did this launch and I then went to work for them, they had this amazing warehouse that looked very, very plain from the outside, but on the inside it was architecturally designed. It was you'd almost call it like a very cool futuristic nightclub. So all their audio, all their automation, everything was throughout the fit out. It was amazing. They had
I'm having mind-blowing memories now.
I think if anyone Googles it, there's still images of it up there. Like, so it's a really cool space. Fifth Corner.
Deshan Street.
Yeah.
Because what I remember is they had, and again, this is, OOs, and they just had wild home automation, which
crazy,
was like at its peak back then, before home automation was really even.
Yep, they were selling Sonos before Sonos became mainstream. They
were miles ahead.
Yeah, definitely.
Of what was going on.
Yeah. Yeah, so we did a launch there because we wanted to do something a little bit edgy and crazy and underground that suited the car, and that was perfect. And then not long after that, the director from there asked if I wanted to come and into a marketing manager, brand manager role into that business, and off I went.
It's all coming back to me
Because I had no Scott Nelson with me anymore.
No,
so
well, see, that was the thing. We'd lost the dynamic duo.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know about you, but like creative life, I do find, I know you've always done it by yourself, but I find it harder by myself. Like I love the bounce. I love the the throwing ideas together. And it's even something I talk about like with my production teams or in-house here is like you get the thread of an idea. And I always say this, when I'm pitching something to the team, like this is a terrible idea. It's not fully formed, but it's a thread. I know that there's something there. And then having somebody with you that you can sort of bounce that out.
Yeah. 100%. Like I think with my situation now, it's hard because it's coming from, so far within from a creative point of view. It's, artworks are a very personal thing. Whereas when we work together, which we'll get into on different projects, that sort of thing is to have the balance of the two is pretty amazing, because I love that too. Like you throw an idea out there and it may not be the best, but the second or third person next to you at the table might be able to work on that and direct it. And it's almost like this meandering path that, where you want to get to, but 4 or 5 other people may give you a better way of getting there.
And when you've got when you've got good, talented people together, it's actually the thing that I really love about the video production work we do, like the big scale stuff where you're doing like TV commercials and stuff, where you'll have like 10 people on the project.
Yeah.
But every person is an absolute gun. Like they're, deeply creative.
Yeah.
And just, when you get a group of people like that and they're only working on like their finite specialization.
Yeah.
Oh man. Just beautiful things happen.
Yeah. And there's immediate trust in them too, because you just know that what they're producing is is quality, and
because they're not there by accident. They are not there because it's their first rodeo. I've met them and I've gone, you're a gun. And then we've worked together and then we get to that project. And like that is special. So all right, so we're both flying solo at that path. This has to be getting close to when you did your first art show. Like we've got to be getting close. Are we close?
Yeah,
or
actually,
are we miles off?
No, we're pretty close.
I'm remembering the joint in the valley where you did your first show.
Yeah. So
as a solo artist,
I did a dual show in the valley first with Kieran McMaster, who's actually, if anyone knows Anthony Lister, he's quite a famous street artist and has become quite famous and infamous all around the world. It's his brother Kieran, who's also in his own he's also a great artist in himself. I did a dual show with him, and that was while I was still, I'll rewind a little bit. So I went to Fifth Corner, worked in this branding marketing manager role by day, and then they had some spare, so a really small area, like maybe half the size of this office upstairs. And I just said to the owner, I said, can I just use that to paint at night as a studio? And they went, yep, that's fine. So I set it all up. So I would work during the day, and then whatever, 5, 6 o'clock would finish a work day, and I just walk up the stairs and paint up there.
That is quite an integral part to the story. I don't think I knew that.
So that's pretty much where I got to the point of going, okay, I'm creating something again. I'm starting to love what I'm creating again. Like everything, a few pieces went through and I repainted them. But I just sort of went through and then started selling them as well. So, and this is one of those stories that I think a lot of people can relate to, where I was working that full-time job and then also had that hobby, which was kind of turning into a business itself on the side, and they just sort of
ever so slowly start to get a little bit of uplift.
So I got to the point of I don't know, I'm going to say it's probably 2 years into that job of going, okay, well, I remember the day just going, okay, I'm burning myself out. And at the time you think, oh, you have these grandiose ideas of going, oh, I'm going to make it. Yeah, of course I can do it.
Yes.
Am I going to leave a good paying job and do this full time because I need to, if that's going to happen? And I did. That's what I did.
Mate, let it rip.
Yeah.
And that's, mate, that jumping point is the most terrifying.
Scary.
And you see, I see people talking about it all the time, where they're like, oh, obviously the cool word now is side hustle, but they're doing the thing. But if you don't leap into it, it actually never happens.
Yeah, yeah.
If you do not,
yeah,
they talk about, burn the boats,
Mhm.
no retreat, no way out.
Yeah.
Man, not having enough money to pay your bills. Whew. Yeah.
It's pretty full on.
That gets you going.
Yeah, it does. You want to talk about a hustle? That's the best way to hustle.
Oh, yeah.
It's not having a definite income each week.
All of a sudden, you become fairly extraordinarily motivated.
Yeah.
Mate, tell me about those early days.
Oh, I mean, as you know, they're hard. They're really hard. Like at the time I was, before I made that leap, I was living in a nice little, wool store apartment in Tenerife, and I was a cool artist, and but I wasn't really the cool artist because I had a full-time job, and I was kind of just, it's like,
you're a sellout.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So to do this, I was, I was in my early 30s, and I moved back in with my parents for 12 months just to sort of make it all work. And it was, I mean, I love my mum and dad to bits, and they were supportive, but there came a point where I remember dad saying, like, you've got to make it work. Yeah. And I was trying to make it work, but it's, as you know, with any business starting up, like you said, like 10 grand in that
10 grand in 12 months.
Yeah.
Like, do the math on that. To work that out.
Don't go too far.
That is not something to be proud of. But I don't think people, and this is the thing I find, and it's why most of my friends these days are business owners.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you do not own your business, you have no context of the stress that it brings and how hard it is to get yourself to a point where what you do is fully funded by yourself.
Yes.
Like that
is
a
good way of putting it.
Like, mate, that is a mountain that is pretty much vertical, and like there's fireballs and icicles dropping on you, and then there's wolves at the bottom.
It's like a Donkey Kong game, but 10 times worse.
And you're just getting punched in the face the whole time.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that I came to find was people that just make their money, and they got a nice lease car, and they got all the flash. Like they don't get the sacrifice and the suffering that goes into like making your own show. Like just not even in the ballpark. No concept of the suffering.
No. And I think my wife had her own business as well. Had a really successful hair salon which she sold a few years ago, so we could start a family. But we found our group of friends like slowly dwindling, and it wasn't because of anything other than you've got to spend a lot of time on your business, and you need the people that, when you do have that free time, you need the people around you that understand, because they get it. And not necessarily you have to sit around and have a woe is me moment, but they just understand that, you got to cancel last minute. That's okay.
No problems.
I get it. Yeah.
Totally get it. And it's that sort of stuff where, people will get shitty at you because you can't go to something. And you're like, are you joking?
Yeah.
Like, I have to do this.
Yeah.
How can I not explain to you?
Yeah.
I know that you can pull a bloody RDO and have a sick day.
Yeah.
I can't.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't turn up, it's game over.
Yeah.
Like, that client will never ring me again, and I will never, like, it's genuine. It feels like, I know I'm over exaggerating here, but you have to treat it like life and death, because it is the life and death of your business. Like, if you don't go, if you don't show up, if you don't give it everything you got,
that's true.
Like, mate, it's over.
Yeah. And as everyone knows, like, it's especially these days with the amount of like outlets and ways you can review businesses, and even just social media in itself. Like, you can be destroyed with a sentence.
Yeah, and they'll just flog you.
Yeah. So you even now more so, you really need to be vigilant, and as you say, like, turn up. I don't care if you're like you
Yeah.
know, if you're dying with a cold or a
Yeah.
man flu, you need to just get there,
Mate,
get the job done.
sort it out, fix
Yeah.
it out, because
Yeah.
nobody cares. And this
Yeah.
is the thing, like, no one cares about your excuses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody wants to hear excuses,
Yeah.
particularly
Yeah.
if they're paying you as a professional. They don't want to hear your sob story.
Absolutely.
Like,
Yeah.
your sob story might get you out of trouble at work,
Yeah.
but mate, your sob story does not get you out of trouble when you're the boss.
No, not at all. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just don't think people, I don't think that there is a deep enough understanding, because there's such a chasm between, a little bit of side hustle, you might make a few bucks.
Yeah. Yeah.
To fully self-sufficient,
Yeah. Yeah.
with your own income.
Yeah. Absolutely. And you know, and it takes a certain person to, not that I'm blowing us up at all,
Yeah.
but it definitely does. Like when you meet those people, it takes a certain person to make that leap and to understand that doing it prolonged as well. It's not, anyone can do it for 6 to 12 months ago and I've got a meeting today with this person and that, and it seems all like,
cool.
Yeah, amazing.
Come
but
and
to
see
do
me
it
in
for
5 years.
Yeah, 5+, 10+ years, and then
then I'll be impressed.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
and you see that, again, the hustle culture, and man, I even say this to people about marketing. Like they go, "Oh, what things can I do?" And I'm like, man, you just got to keep doing the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you actually don't have to do anything super fancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You just, exactly what you said. Like, any idiot can be good for a day, a week, a month, 6 months, but can you be good for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? And can you be as excited today
Mm-hmm.
as you were 10 years ago?
Yeah. Yeah.
And because that's a whole other game.
Yeah.
And see, you and I are the same, where I'm just as excited today. Like, we were on the phone, as you were driving here.
Yeah.
And like, we're both bloody pumped because,
Yeah.
like, we're stoked to catch up. I'm doing this thing, we're podcasting. I don't even know what's going on here. But like, it's every day is exciting because you're making your own adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a really good way to put it. It is like every day is different. Like it's
never the same.
It's never the same.
Like, no 2 days look the same.
No.
Like,
Not
some
at all.
days look real bad, some days look real good, and lots of them are actually somewhere in the middle.
Yeah.
But it is never the same.
No. And I think that's the excitement about it too. You're like, to go back to those books that we read as kids, like you are choosing your own adventure.
Totally.
Like any choice or any decision that you make throughout the day, the month, the year, that's how your business and your career is going to go. Because, and it may not be an immediate change, but something you do now might actually, alter something a few months down the track. So you're constantly thinking about the now, you're thinking about the future, you're thinking about the long-term future.
Always.
So yeah.
That's why teach your kids chess.
Yes.
That's the game. You got to be thinking 10 moves ahead all the time. But that's one of my favorite things. Like, I love, like, and even with this stuff that I'm doing here, that I was like, I enjoyed doing these little shows, but I sort of got sick of just having myself on there. And I was like, oh, wouldn't it be cool? Like, I know lots of cool people, maybe we could get together and talk about stuff. And like, bam, next minute, I've got a podcasting studio, which, look, it's pretty budget. You can sort of still hear Ipswich Road banging out in the background. But like, I love the fact that I can decide and then do it.
Yeah.
And I don't expect,
You had this gear set up within less than a week.
Yeah.
You messaged me and said, do you want to come? We'll do it online. I said, do you want me to come and sit with you and do it? You're like, yeah, done.
Yeah, actually, that's exactly how it happened. So I didn't own any of this stuff a week ago. The fact that Matty said, oh, we'll do it in person. And I'm like, oh, God, I actually have no capacity to do that. So I've like gone and set up a whole studio. I got a shout out to Jason and Tanya from the Just Shoot Me podcast, because they actually showed me what to do. Because I literally didn't know how to do a podcasting studio. But again, I jumped on Google, I YouTubed it, I looked it up, I figured it out. I talked to some intelligent people, and then I did it.
Yeah.
And that's the difference, is like, you and I don't talk about it. We just get it done.
Yeah. And so just going back to something you just said in that last sentence is something that, which I wanted to get in at some point, but something that you said to me many, many, many years ago that I think about whenever I'm quoting on a job that seems a little bit overwhelming. I think, can I do it? Can I pull this off? You said to me, say yes, and you work out the details later. And I to this day, I use that day to day in my business. Like and then that's exactly what you've done. You've gone, let's do it. And you figured it out. Yeah.
And it's the same thing where you can't let stuff overwhelm you, because even so as of yesterday, the laptop that I was using, it was not a legendary Alienware like this bad boy here, which is actually from 2012. Would you believe it? This thing is a weapon. I just, again, I cannot get over how powerful that thing is. Like I think that other laptop is like 7 months old. I had it set up here because I use the Alienware day to day, and I had, this other thing set up to like set it up as a studio computer. And yesterday it just stopped working. And I'm like, good.
Yeah.
And then today I fired this up. Chrome decided to not work and wouldn't let the browser work, and I've restarted it 2 or 3 times. But it's that mentality where like nothing's working, and we could just pull a pin and go, oh, bugger it, we're not doing it today. But like that is not my attitude. I'm like, I said to Maddie, I said, look, it doesn't matter. We'll start a few minutes late, whatever, but I will figure this out.
Yeah.
And you keep going, you keep smashing until you get a solution, because that's all that matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like that's all that matters, is you just have to like problem. I actually said this to my wife this morning. It's one of the things that grates me, and I really get my goat up around this. Any idiot can find problems. And this is something that I can't get over enough. Like, same as people on the internet bagging you out or whatever they're doing, abusing your business.
Yeah.
Any moron can sit there and go, oh, that's not very good. It takes absolute brilliance to create solutions.
Yeah.
Morons can figure out problems. They can go, oh, that won't work because of this. Okay, moron.
Yeah.
If somebody says that and stands there pointing out problems, I immediately think that they're a moron.
Yeah.
Whereas if they go, oh, okay, what about this? Some ideas. That to me is an indicator of brilliance.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I can't even add anything to that. That's perfectly said.
Yeah,
that's exactly what. Yeah, that's exactly right. Because the people that you get negativity from are ones that have never and will never do it. They're just sitting. They're just there waiting for that moment.
Correct. They think that it's going to magically happen. Much like winning the lotto or getting struck by lightning. They think that something magically happens and then you magically get somewhere.
Yeah.
But you don't.
Yeah.
You just grind it out.
Yeah.
And even when it's the worst ever, and something I've come to talking about more is I've started to view my existence more like, going through the seasons. And, sometimes you're in the middle of winter. And, sometimes it's just real bad. And it can stay real bad for a while.
Yep.
But I try to remind myself now, even when everything's terrible, you go, mate, at the end of winter comes what? And, on the other side of that will be spring, will be summer, it will all be good again. And I've had to spend a lot of time reminding myself of that, because so much of like this, creative journey, self-employed journey is a living nightmare.
Yeah.
Like, big chunks of it are pretty terrible. And we sort of got onto this because, we were talking about your first, couple of years in the business there, because, so we've sort of covered off. So you're at Fifth Corner, because I'm gonna jump us back here. You're at Fifth Corner. You found a little art space. You've YOLO'd and you've gone, I'm doing this.
Yeah.
So you've done that first 2 years. How's it going there? Take me back to that place.
Oh, it it was good.
See, I don't believe you at all there.
First, I'd probably say the first maybe 3 to 3.5 years since I YOLO'd was like hard. Like that was just like building a business. I was getting work in, there's no doubt about that, but turning it into an actual business and running it and so forth, that was never really existent. It was kind of like just doing the work and taking the orders as they came in and working on that. And at that point I wasn't I didn't have Instagram. I just had Facebook. Facebook online advertising really wasn't anywhere. It was almost non-existent. Yeah. It was really just relying on posting to your own personal page and hoping other people would see it. Yeah. And then getting referrals from that. So I think I did it, in hindsight, I did it when the tools weren't there to push forward like they are now. So as those tools started to become available, that's when the momentum started to happen. And I remember, you telling me years ago I didn't have Instagram. You're like, what? Why do you not have Instagram? It's so easy. It's like it's visual based. It's
pictures, mate.
Yeah, and
Like-
I think that night I went and set myself because I was purely working on Facebook and I had a business page and I was building that, and I just thought I didn't really see the value in it at that point from a marketing point of view. I was just looking at it like, oh, it's people posting pictures of food or holidays, and that's how I saw it. And you opened my eyes to the fact that it was, you know, from a business point of view, and especially a visual business point of view, it's absolute gold. So I started it up, and then
from a creator's point of view.
Yeah.
Because that would have been, I'm trying to remember, that would have been 2011, 2012. I'm trying to think where the start of my Instagram stream is. I reckon it's around there.
Yeah, actually, I was probably a little bit later, maybe 2013, 2014, something like that. Yeah.
Terrible.
Late to the party.
Mate.
I'm not an early adopter with technology. I just wait, and so I don't have TikTok. I look at that guy. I don't have time for TikTok.
Do you know I've done TikTok, but I've sort of wound out of it because, like, I get it, but
I don't have the time to do it. I get it. I absolutely get it. But that's you know, on the flip side of it as well, that's not my demographic.
Yeah, and it's not my vibe. Like, I think that was the thing. Like, it suits a lot of the dumb things I do. It suits like my forward driving and stupid things that I do. But like for what I do, as you know, I don't want to be like glorifying myself, or I don't know.
I get it.
I don't know. Like, it just doesn't. I think it's got to work for you.
I think if you're doing it from a business point of view, it needs to be, like I just said, the right demographic. Like, if you're not hitting that age bracket that it's aimed at, like it's kind of pointless. Like, why not put your efforts into, you know, from a creative point of view, from Pinterest or something where your demographic is sitting, or Instagram or Facebook.
And put the time into that.
All
right, so we finally got you on there. I'm still trying to get to this first art show because, you know.
So I think while I was when I jumped out and did that. So when I was at Fifth Corners, before I went out and did it, I did that dual show, and then
so I'm trying to put the timeline.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And then I went out and did my own thing, and I was doing that for about 18 months, and then I met my now wife, who was,
I remember that vividly. I remember the courting.
Yeah, who was living in Tenerife as well, in a Worcester apartment.
Naturally.
Yep. So I ended up, I think we were dating for a few months. We were actually like, I'll rewind this to put it into context. Like,
I remember Maddie being smitten.
She had just gotten out of a long-term relationship, and pretty much said to me black and white from the first time we caught up for dinner, like, I'm not ready for a relationship. I don't want to date. And I'm like, yeah, okay, sounds great.
Yeah.
So we were, and we joke about this now. It's quite funny, but we were friends, like good best friends. No, nothing actually happened
in the friend zone.
Absolutely in the friend zone for a good 12 months. And then I broke her down.
Yeah, you slowly wore her out with your persistence.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah.
Again, mate, anybody can be a hero for
one
day. But mate, you had that inbuilt. Because see, this is the thing. This is why I get so excited about, like, that over time.
Yeah.
You know, actually, my old man would always say, "In the fullness of time, Scott." But like, he's right.
Yeah.
You know, everything good. Genuinely takes time, which is super annoying when you're like 20-something years old and you're like full of energy and want to make something of yourself.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear that.
Yeah.
So annoying.
I want it now.
Yeah. Okay, so you've worn it down.
So while we were before we started dating, I actually left Fifth Corner and moved to it. Do you remember that studio space I had in the valley?
I remember the studio space because I remember seeing Anna in there and just painting, and she'd come in and watch you.
So and it was cute. One night while I was painting, she says, I looked at him differently that night, and that's the rest is history.
Bam.
So I had that studio space, and from there I created the first exhibition, which I think I keep going back to Tenerife. But managed to get a full basement level under one of the wool stores, which was empty and for lease at that time. So I managed to get it I had an opening night, and then I had an exhibition for 3 days following. And I think at that point I wanted to do. I was going to exhibitions and you know, a street. I was very inspired by street art as well. So I was
Yeah.
going to a lot of these things and just taking it all in and just seeing, not that they weren't great, but I was seeing that nothing exciting was, there's nothing tingly about it. It was
Yeah.
just art on walls, really well lit. And you walk in and go, have your wine or your champagne.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks nice. That looks nice. Love that. And then you leave, and then
Yeah.
that's it.
It was
So
pretty bland.
yeah, it was bland. So when I decided to do this exhibition, I wanted to make it an event on the opening night.
And you can, again, mate, as Steve Jobs, you can only connect the dots looking back. You know, as you go back through, you know, your time at Fifth Corner and the time, you know, your time at Mini, and it actually makes perfect sense.
Absolutely. So so the opening night was, so obviously I painted a full exhibition of artworks, but I didn't want to light them real, you know, because we're talking about the basement level of a wool store apartment. So you got huge concrete columns, concrete floors, exposed brick. Like it was a very Brooklyn, gritty New York feel to it as an empty shell. So that sparked the idea of having like a really cool you know, New York themed opening night.
Like a club vibe.
So the DJ who was actually still is a good friend of mine. I put him behind. I got some like temporary fencing, and he was behind that. And all the artwork was actually lit from below with like, you know, like theater can lights. So it would throw shadow across the artworks. Like, you know, any exhibitionist would walk in there and go, you can't even see half these things, but it created the emotion.
The vibe.
It was the vibe. And, you know, the wine was, you know, I got Belvedere vodka on board, and they supply, and then the wine was being served out of hot chip containers. Remember the ones from the Eka?
Of course it was.
You know, and we had a hot dog vendor and then New York sliced pizza. Like it was very, very
cool.
Underground and cool.
But it's what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
You're like, if I'm going to go to an event, do I want it to be sucky and boring, or would I like it to be awesome?
Yeah. And you know, the funny thing was, I had I mean, that was in 2011. And I think even up until like the feed, it gives me goosebumps now. The feedback that I got initially from everyone that came, like, because there's the usual people that turn up to these things, and it's a real eclectic mix of people on the opening night, was that you know, there would be nothing like it in Brisbane for a long time, because it was just that different, that energetic. The vibe was amazing. And then even 4 or 5 years later, I still had people saying, remember that exhibition you did, like when was that in the wool store, you know? So that was the long lasting legacy, for lack of a better word, of that exhibition that that I look back on fondly and think, wow, you know, I created this, and on a small budget too.
So
it's not
was
like
your first solo exhibition. So So the one, because the one I'm thinking of,
that was my only solo. I haven't had an exhibition since.
Because the one at the other side of my office, you can't see it here, but there's the Lego Man. Which is like OG Matt Stewart. And I remember buying that. I remember paying $500 for it. I remember not really having $500. But like, I don't know, this is something else I really bang on about. And I probably bang on about it more now that my business is a little bit more established, is if you are the sort of person that hits up your friends' businesses and asks them for a discount, you're a dickhead. I can't say this loud enough. Support your friends' businesses, pay them. You know, do the very best that you can, you know, to spend the money with them, particularly the people who are just getting going. Man, it hurts. Like it hurts so bad. Like if you're, you know, making cakes or whatever it is. Like it just, because I've really felt this over the years. And you know, I know we both share this. But like it's so nice, and I'm so proud of that piece in particular, because for me that was like day dot, like at that place in Spring Hill, that underground thing there. Do you remember that one?
How do I not remember
Oh,
this? Have
dude.
I? It's
Yeah,
hell.
and see, I feel like that show was actually before the one you're talking about in
Oh,
Tenerife.
okay. That was in the Valley.
Yeah,
That's
in the
on the
Valley.
cusp.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
yeah.
was the Jewel show I did with
Yeah, the Jewel
Kieran.
show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, yeah.
Because I remember that
So
all the way back when.
that was
Yeah.
an exhibition. That was prior to this other one I was
Yeah,
talking about, but that
prior
wasn't.
to the solo show.
Yeah.
Because like I was just so proud of my friend having
Yeah.
like his art on display and people there, and like I just remember that just being a super cool vibe.
It was cool that night.
Like
Yeah,
just
yeah,
really like I've
yeah.
never forgotten. It's crazy the stuff that sticks in your mind of like, you know, the millions of things you've done over, you know, years and decades. But like that moment, like the joy I had because, you know, I was fighting my own battle, trying to get my own thing off the ground. And, you know, watching you, you know, take those steps forward. Like it's just the coolest.
Yeah.
Like you just
And I think
so
also
happy.
Yeah, and I think also like having a genuine friend purchase something off you, no matter what that product will be, when you're at that infinite stage.
Yeah.
What do you call infant stage?
Infant stage. Yeah.
I think that's really important too, because you just see if you think, okay, well, my friends can support me, then
Yeah.
I know that, you know, I've got
Like there's a market for this.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
it's cool.
yeah.
And like that painting has followed me like everywhere I go. I'll have to pull it off the wall. But like I've had that. My first office, I think we're now in my third office where we're sitting now. My very first office, my brother Adam built for us under my house. Like he literally went and got some plasterboard and some things, and he whacked some walls up.
Yeah.
And you came to this office.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it wasn't pretty. You know, it was an, you know, old 1940s house, and it was, you know, up on stumps, and we just slapped some walls up, put some carpet tiles down. It was timber above, and the dog would pee on the floor, and it'd drip down onto our IKEA desks. And when it would rain, the house was designed that the water would run under the house.
So everyone lift your legs
So the
up.
whole thing, it'd flood under the house. We'd get a river running under there. And then my favorite memory of all that is the executive washroom. If you recall that. So the place had like an outhouse downstairs bathroom. And I mean, it was revolting. Like think about the worst dunny you've ever been to. It was that, but probably a little bit worse. Like it had no walls and the termites had eaten it out. Like it was revolting.
Yeah.
But we would refer to it as the executive washroom because like that actually just made it sound less hideous. But point of the story was I actually had Maddie's artwork hanging in my very first office, which was this, you know, dodgy makeshift thing under the house. And, you know, it sits with me now, you know, 3 offices later. I had an office in West End for 8 years. You know, I've been here for 3 years. And every day I look at that and like it just makes me smile. Like it's my connection, you know, to my mate. And I've actually got some of his work at my house. And Maddie actually did a beautiful piece when my son was born, and that actually hangs above my son's bed. Like it brings me so much joy. And I think this is a funny thing. I probably wasn't much of an art guy. Look, I think I lacked a lot of culture. I didn't really get a lot of it, but like I dug it because you liked it.
Yeah. I think, I think a lot of people, and you know, coming across a lot of my clients as I, you know, move through my career, I think a lot of people are very similar. Like they think they're not art people and they think they're uncultured, but when you really dig deep, they do have something in them. Like it's kind of, I don't know how to describe it. Like, you know, you start talking to them and they start giving you these little tidbits and you think, actually, you do kind of know what you like, and you have a kind of feel and a style and things that you like.
You just haven't had a chance to explore.
And maybe because it's not,
like.
It's not, absolutely. It's because it's not immediately part of their day-to-day life. They just gets like filed to the back and it's not important.
And if it's not, I don't know, like when you think art, you think of like going to an art gallery and you think of, you know, great works, and you think of, you know,
most people would shy away from that, going, oh, it's not for me.
Van Gogh or, you know, something like that. But like it doesn't need to be. It's just whatever you like. And there's actually, I don't know if you can actually. So directly above your head, there's actually an artwork up there by he's an Australian fellow that now lives in the UK, and his name's Jason Fong. And that bit of artwork he does this just crazy thing. So for Le Mans 24 hours,
Mhm.
which is like actually tickets just went on sale, he paints 24 watercolors in 24 hours, like moments from the race.
Yeah.
So like that is a moment from, I think that was 20.
24.
Yeah.
LM24. Yeah.
Yeah, but what year is it? 2020? 2020. Yeah, I
Yep.
bought that during lockdown.
Yeah.
But
It's
I'm like,
very cool.
oh man, it's so cool. And like that's what he does is, he's a photographer. And so again, like there's this burning desire to make art.
Yeah.
And like I saw that, I'm like, man, that is awesome.
Mm.
And I'd probably never, that actually started a whole other journey, where I'd never, like I'd, you've painted art for me and you've made art for me and
Mhm.
all sorts of cool things. And I've got to fit this in. At one point in time, I had the largest collection of Matt Stewart artwork anywhere in the world.
You
I was the
did.
number one. I think I was up to 7 works, but somebody's exceeded that now. But man, I want that on your Wikipedia page. Like I want,
It was
that-
once.
Oh, it was once.
I'll have to keep topping you up over the years.
Legit collector.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing Jason stuff, and like that was the first time I bought somebody else's art.
Mhm.
Like, and I actually expanded out past.
Let me ask you this: why did you purchase that?
2 reasons.
Yeah.
So exactly what I said before.
Mhm.
I wanted to support the dude.
Yep.
Because like mad respect for what he's doing.
Yep.
I think that honestly that was the number one reason.
Yep. Yeah.
I wanted to be like, go you, that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
And like support with my dollars.
Yep.
To go, that's kick ass.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah.
And I liked it. Like I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
It's really pretty.
So right there is where a lot of people stumble with art as well. Like I say to my audience, like on social media or wherever, like I don't care if you spend $10 or $10,000, like you buy it because you love it.
Yeah.
Sure, there are people out there like, and there's there is a whole community that buys art to make money off, and
as an investment.
As an investment, and that's absolutely fine. Like I support that. Like but most people, general day-to-day people, like that want to purchase art, like purchase things for those reasons, not because you want to make money off it.
Man, you buy it because you love it. And I think that's the thing I've come, like, you look at all the silly stuff up on the wall here. We were talking about this earlier. Like it's all just stuff that I love.
Yeah.
And most of it is actually just stories.
Yeah.
Each thing represents, a beautiful point in time, a wonderful moment, a friend, a memory. Like I've actually got like that Le Mans picture is next to the ticket from when I actually went to Le Mans as a guest of Aston Martin, thanks to Liam Talbot at that point in time. And, like that was one of the best things I've ever done in my whole life. Like I got to walk on, like in pit lane at Le Mans, and I got to watch the start of Le Mans from Aston Martin's like private suite above pit lane.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah. So that ties back to that artwork, and you just like it just
every time I look at it, it's so like it brings me so much joy because I think of these wonderful times, these wonderful people, and like it makes me smile. And that's the thing that I guess that's the thing I've come to appreciate about art that I've started to collect, because I've actually started to have, like, I actually have a few pieces now at home. And they're all, I've got another hand-drawn watercolor from another artist that, my wife used to work with. And again, I saw her work. She posted it on Instagram. And I'm like, that is amazing. And same exercise. Like she just launched as an artist. And same thing. I'm like, you're a great human.
Yeah.
I love what you're doing. I'd love to support that by buying some of your work.
Yeah.
But I've got to jump into something else that I learned from that Le Mans thing. When I bought it, it was the first time I'd bought a piece of art that was like just, flat. So it was just it was the watercolor on the parchment.
Yep. Non-framed.
Nothing. And I'm like, okay, what do I do now?
Yeah.
And that was a real problem because, mate, you can hear a switch road.
Coming to get us.
That was the Ambos. So this thing's come, and I've looked at it and gone, oh God, it needs a frame. And my challenge was, I'm like, this is such a beautiful work of art. I can't desecrate it with something from IKEA or Kmart,
Mm.
which is what I would have done previously. You just buy the $10 number and just stick it in there and it should be right, mate. So for the first time ever,
you realized how expensive framing is.
Man, I had a heart attack. But I just,
framing,
mate, I discovered the art of framing.
Yeah.
So like I've lived, same place for 14 years. And for 14 years, I've been driving past this sign that's like 3 blocks from me. And it's a little sign that says framing fabulous. And like, I'd never thought anything about it. I was like, mate, how la-di-da do you need to be? To be getting your own frames, mate. I'm like, turn it up.
Yeah.
Until I got myself a nice piece of artwork and I bumbled in there one day and I'm like, hey, I got this thing and it needs the frame and I don't know what to do and I don't know what it costs and I don't know where to. And, Irene, who owns that business, again, somebody who works for herself under the house, like, man, she is an artist in her own right. Holy.
It's harder than people think, like to get it perfect. Yeah.
Man, framing is like, I've come to appreciate framing as the art that celebrates the art.
Yeah.
Like it
absolutely. It's like I look at it like it's a portable museum.
Yeah.
So if you want to protect, an artwork and you'd put it in a museum or a beautiful high-end art gallery and like it'd be curated and looked after and packaged and the air quality. It's basically just a smaller version of that you can take off the. Yeah, it's exactly what it is.
And like I almost had a heart attack when she said it was like $250. I'm like,
yeah.
But when you realize that it's not the Kmart frame and that she like literally makes this thing from scratch, like she doesn't pull a frame off the shelf. She measures the thing, gets the dimensions right, and gets the
cuts the
and gets the colors and the things. And I'm now at the point where she's framed like 7 or something pieces for me.
Yeah.
And I now just turn up with an artwork and I'm like, do your magic.
Yeah.
And oh man.
Yeah.
Can elevate a work of art.
Yeah.
Anyway, massive.
No, I think no. That's
how's that for an artistic journey for a bloke that's like, oh yeah, art.
Yeah, I think people underestimate framing. As I said earlier on in the introduction, I sell limited edition art prints as well, which are A1 size, so they're 54 centimeters wide by 800 deep sort of size. Like they're pretty decent size. And when customers buy them from my Shopify store and, I usually get an email going, I just bought this. I love it.
Yeah.
How do I go about framing it? I'm like, well, you got 2 options. One, you can go to Officeworks, Domain, Harvey Norman. They all sell off the shelf A1 frames for $50 to $60. Or if you want a longevity out of it and you really love this piece and you want to have it forever, go and see a local framer.
Go and see a framer.
Oh, might, for that size, you'll probably pay double the amount of what the print costs.
Oh, totally.
But
like
it's worth it. Yeah.
And then it hangs with pride in your room. And the other thing I've come to discover is like you take a photo of the space, like where it's going to be hung, and you show that to the framer.
Yeah.
And they will like
they'll match
integrate.
decor and
they'll match the colors and the whole shebang.
Yeah.
Geez, we've changed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've got a blue leather couch. And here we are integrating the colors of our framing with
the blue frame to match the couch.
With the internal palette of the home. Oh boy. All right. Well, since we jumped so far off track, I want to back it up again.
Yeah, of course.
So you've done your expo.
Yeah.
In Valley or Tenerife? I don't know. Either way, you've done your underground New York, like kicking ass, showing people that Matty Stewart's a legend. What happened next?
I think even then, after that, I obviously started to get orders from that, and like I got a lot of. I had a publicist by that stage, so I got a lot of PR and media out of it, and so I started to get orders.
Yeah.
But even then, it was still a slow burn. It's still. It was a faster burn, but it was still a slow burn.
Hard yards.
And something that we can talk about, in a minute. But I painted for that exhibition. I painted an artwork that would go on to be probably one of my most famous works. And if I tell anyone what it is, they would have seen it somewhere whether it would have been copied in Bali or copied in the UK, or and I'm sure there's probably thousands of people that have copies of it. But I actually painted that artwork as part of that exhibition, and
Really?
it didn't sell.
What?
It did not sell. I held on to
Man.
that for nearly 12 months.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Because this is the thing. I know exactly the artwork that he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because Matty has become successful enough to literally have, people steal this artwork and make replicas of it. And people, like in particular over in Bali, like there's tons of them.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen photos of them. I've seen people post photos.
I've never been, but like not so much recently, but when it first started, it still does happen. But when it first started happening, sort of rewind like 6-7 years ago, I would get just random people that follow me on social media just being over there on holidays and sending photos of these, street side galleries and proper galleries with not even that artwork, like anything that I would post on social media, copies of it.
Made. Wow.
Yeah. But not only myself, there was the likes of David Bromley, Anya Paint, I can't remember her, Anya Brock, who's I think she's a Perth artist, like anyone who started to have artwork being seen in the public eye that was real contemporary and popular. They copy in 5 seconds. And
like that's crazy twofold, that horrible to have your IP being stolen, but crazy that you've tapped into something that resonates with people at that scale where it is copied. It's both an extraordinary compliment and an extraordinary insult simultaneously.
Absolutely. And I can laugh about it now. In the very beginning, I was furious. You think how
spewing.
But I can laugh about it now. It's one of those things that it happens. Like there's nothing you can do about it, unfortunately, over there. Like they got a free for all, which is why you buy a rip off any brand over there. The place that I could start doing things about it was when people would go over and buy like 50 of them, roll them up, come back, stretch them, and sell them in Australian stores. So the amount of cease and desist that I've sent out over the years, like, and they'll 99% of the time people don't realize that it's a copy, and within minutes it's off their website.
Like, I'm so sorry.
They're very apologetic, but you'll get a couple of people that go, oh well,
jam it.
Yeah.
And again, this goes all the way back to why only people that are fighting the wars as a business owner get it. Because like when you are having to literally fight people, for your work, and like, that's because sadly as a business owner you will end up, in legal stoushes with people. I've found that's just what ends up having to happen. And again, that's a frustration and a pain that only somebody that has been through it can fully appreciate. So, all right. So you're a big deal. You're being sold overseas in replica. No, so like that, because that's a crazy time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was just after that there was a store in this is when momentum started to gather, like after this thing that happened, and where it's
this is the good bit. This is the uplift.
So obviously I'm just I'm painting, I'm trying to make a living. I'm lucky that I have a partner who has a successful business and where has full confidence in me of what I can do, and that knows as well in her own heart that it's
mate, she believes.
She believes. So
shout out to our wives.
Yes. Without them. So I got so after that I got asked to send some artworks down to a store in Prahran in Melbourne called Fenton and Fenton, which at that time was the interior design place to go to in Melbourne, if not the country. Like, they were selling the latest of this and the latest of that. So I sent I sent 2 pieces down, and then you can finish the story because you know what happens next.
No, Matt, this is your story.
So I sent 2 pieces down. They were down there for a couple of weeks. And then I think it was a Thursday night. Anna and I had gone out to dinner to Beccafino. Shout out to Beccafino, the most amazing Italian restaurant in Brisbane, which was across the road from us. So we've gone, let's just go out for dinner. It was a Thursday night. And then my phone was in my pocket on silent, and I just felt non-stop vibration. Oh, this is weird. Like, So I
That's
got it out and
strange.
just went, yeah, because you get
Yeah.
likes every now and then, but
Yeah.
what's going on?
I
So
don't have that many friends. Like, calm down.
yeah, exactly.
I'm getting spammed here.
And what it actually turned out was Megan Gale had actually bought one of those artworks from Fenton and Fenton and had posted it on her social media saying, I just bought this amazing artwork.
Crazy.
And that right there was the tipping point in my career.
That was the moment.
That was the moment that it
Gale.
was one of the moments. That was the very first big moment, because at the time, I think she had maybe 250,000 followers.
Yeah.
I think she's grown a lot since then,
sure.
but it all of a sudden went out. This visual of this artwork went out to all these people that had never seen my artwork, and people mostly in Melbourne, but all over the country, that were the right demographic, had the right amount of income. Like it just, all the stars just aligned.
The magic moment.
Yeah.
The tipping point.
And we had to, I was just showing my wife, I just went, oh my God, look. And I was getting inquiries and emails, and I want this, how much is this? And I wasn't ready for it.
No,
I had,
well, again, mate, you've been slumming it for for how long? And you're there going, oh, okay, one day. And you're like, oh God, it's the day.
Yeah, and I had no Shopify store at that side. I was literally like replying to people, and I just said to her, I'm like, quick, let's eat. We've got to get home.
Yeah, we're gonna go.
I literally, I think I spent the next 5 or 6 hours just replying to people. Like I had a copy and paste. They're like, how much is it? Like, do you do different sizes? I love. So all of a sudden, I was getting all this traffic in and interest and people, and then I think I had about in 5 hours, I had about 6 months worth of bookings.
Holy.
Like that, just like that.
Just boom.
Yeah.
And
my Instagram grew, I think, by about 2,500 people in a couple of hours.
See, that's crazy. And
yeah.
That is the best story. Because, I mean, back at that point in time, and this is what I remember most vividly, is you'd go into David Jones in Brisbane City, and there was like a 2-story high picture of Megan Gale.
Yeah.
And like, you'd walk in there and you'd just salute her. Because, like what a beautiful human.
Yeah.
And then she was single-handedly responsible.
Absolutely.
For an absolute corner being turned.
Yeah.
And people going, who's this dude? I love what he does.
And you know what the funny thing is? Like, she is the most beautiful person as well. Like, she's so humble and down to earth. And I've gone on after that. I went on to paint an artwork for her son River when he was born. I think he's about 5 or 6 now. And then her husband commissioned me because she was in the new Mad Max movie. She played a role in that. So her husband then commissioned me to paint an artwork of her in that role for her birthday. I think it was her 40th, maybe.
I forgot about that. I don't think we talked about it.
It was her 21st.
21st. You're 21 forever.
So and then she's one of those people that I've never met her in person, but I've conversed with her via social media and phone over the years and stuff. She's a very nice, beautiful person. Yeah.
And that's just the best.
And you know what the great thing was? She bought that artwork because, for no other reason, because she appreciated it.
She liked it. And isn't that's literally exactly what we were talking about? For whatever reason, you look at it, it resonates with you, it makes you happy.
Yeah.
And man, isn't that the best feeling? Like, as somebody that makes stuff for a living, when somebody sees your work and goes, oh, I really love that. Like, that's special.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that's what made it even more so. She wasn't buying it for any other reason other than, oh my God, that's amazing. I love that. Yeah.
Before you were famous.
Yeah.
Mate, she believed.
She did.
That's a hell of a story, that one. Like, you can't get tired of those sort of stories. Like,
no.
But again, what's the time scale here? So, we're talking, what's that, 2010 to like what year? Like, how many years?
Oh God.
Between like going, I'm going to be an artist, and then like that life-changing moment.
God, the years have gone by so fast. We got married in 2016. I remember it was 2015 when she purchased it. So it was just before that. Yeah. Because I remember going, wow, that's,
but like, that's a grind. So what's that? That's 5 years, 4 or 5 years. I'm trying to.
Until that point.
To that point.
Yeah.
So 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was about 5 years.
About 5 years.
Yeah.
And again, this is
It was
Goes
just
back to
5
that.
years of doing that. Yay. Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Yeah.
and I'm broke again.
Yeah.
Like,
And I think it's important for people to realize that too. Like when you get to a certain point, and not that I'm, you know, where
yeah.
but there, you go through the first few
Oh,
years, like those sorts of things,
terrible.
take time.
Yeah. 5
Yeah.
years. And I just think that that's so important. Oh, I just think that's so important to talk about
Mm.
because like that's a long stretch.
Oh, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I often reflect on this because, I think I was 28 or something when we first, the business was something that we registered and decided we were going to do.
Yeah.
And, I'm still working other jobs. If you had told me back then that, like, I think it was 2 years until, like, I got a paycheck and my paycheck was like $90 for a week's work.
Mm.
Like, if you knew how bad it was going to be in terms of how long, you'd never start.
No.
Like, if in a
No.
rational sense,
Yeah.
you go, okay, in 5 years, you're going to have a win. But what you got to do is you got to work your ass out for next to nothing for half a decade. But after that, it'll be good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, that's the worst. That is the worst. Like, who in their right mind would go, oh, yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, and on the flip side of it too, I think it's probably good that, that these these influencers or whoever you want to see that have
Yeah.
these supposedly perfect lives that
Yeah.
that people are looking up to and go, I can be that. It gives them
Oh,
these grandiose ideas that they can become that very quickly.
yeah.
But hear me out.
Yeah.
There might
Please.
be a good side to it. Maybe 2% of those people do go on to create an amazing business. And,
Yeah.
because they have no idea of the pitfalls in those first few years, they go in
Definitely.
with rose colored glasses and yeah.
And look,
Yeah.
I think that's right. And again, you see that with people that have big success very early,
Hmm.
and it's a common story around the world. You look at child actors and all that sort of stuff,
Yeah.
where
Yeah.
it goes too big too fast,
Yeah. Yeah.
and mate, there's always a price to be paid,
Hmm.
and that price often seems to be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
the descent, because obviously people love a fall from grace, that always
Yeah.
plays
Yeah.
well. They're brutal. Whereas I guess that is the upside, is that we have been forged in the fires of hell, so that when you finally have some success, the other thing that's happened is you have a humility because you've just bounced along the bottom for so long.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, I know that's certainly my case. Like, I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for anybody that chooses to do business with me,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there was a time when nobody wanted to.
It gives you tools in your toolbox that you never would have had.
No.
I think that's the best way of looking at it. Yeah, because it's how to, not only the gratefulness, it gives you the ability to deal with situations that that you've dealt with before. That that if you just went straight into success and then all of a sudden you would freak out and not know how to handle things.
You wouldn't know how to handle it. And that's what
Mm.
happens. You know how to have difficult conversations. You can read the tea leaves. You can read the vibe. Like, it's all the intuition, and learning to trust the intuition,
Mhm.
and not having to rely. Because also I do see this a fair bit where people are relying on third parties entirely on what do I do.
Yeah.
Whereas like, I never have to ask that question.
Yeah.
And generally, whenever somebody else tells me what to do, I'll probably do the opposite.
Yeah.
Because I'm not interested in that.
Yeah.
I have nothing but faith in my own intuition, because it's always been right.
Yeah, of course.
Might not have been 100% right, but the direction was within a few degrees of where I wanted to go.
Yeah. And I mean, that experience is has given you that confidence to get, even if like you said, even if it wasn't the right direction, you just know you're heading in that general direction. You're not way off the mark.
No, you're not way off. You're within cooey of where you want to go.
Yeah.
Damn it! Do we have to be thankful for the battering that we've taken over the years? Is this what we have to do? Like, I don't want to do that. Look, I don't know. I don't know about you. I've got a lot of memories. I've got a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
Of all the time, and like, we actually quite often laugh here, because we used to go and spend, because again, we didn't have an office, we didn't have anything. we'd go and spend Monday mornings in New Farm Park, and we'd do like our team meeting. And like, our team meeting is like the three of us that own the business. And we'd have a cup of coffee, we'd sit at the bench, we'd talk about what we're trying to do, talk about the clients that we were working on, we'd play some basketball. Because like we literally had that much free time.
Yeah.
Like we had so much, like, oh man, you got so much free time when you don't have any clients. You're not making any money, but you've just, I look back on that from where we are now.
Yeah.
And like, I'm really grateful for that. Like, it was really special time.
Yeah.
Because you're there imagining what the business might look like, and you're there imagining what,
I could put it like this, and you would understand this too. It's like, it's when you and your partner are thinking about what your little offspring will be like, and imagine this and imagine that. Don't get me wrong, sometimes they're little terrors, but you're thinking about all these, a miniature version of you, and then they come out and you see them later on, and you sort of look back on and go, oh, that's exactly, it's like that with a business. Like you're imagining what your baby's going to be like, and how it's, and those little conversations might not mean anything at that time, but then down the track you'll look back on them and go, oh wow, okay, remember when this person bought that, or we were hoping that this would happen.
This is just a beautiful story. I'm so glad that we're actually like laying this down.
Yeah.
So Megan Gale has posted your work. You are now the artist, Matt Stewart. What happens next?
So from that, all of a sudden Fenton and Fenton had a spare wall space, and realized, they got a good kick out of it as well, because they were already, absolutely, they were already well known, but that gave them extra clout as well.
Another good one.
So Lucy Fenton, who was actually the owner I think she is still the owner, she contacted me and said, okay, obviously that sold, can we have another one? So I sent her another one in a different colorway, and then I think maybe, I don't know the timeline, maybe a few weeks later, The Block was filming. Only the TV show The Block, was filming a couple of streets away. And one of the contestants went in there, and my artwork was only like on the screen for, I've got the screen grab of it on my computer at home. 3 seconds, let's say 3 seconds. It was nothing. It was almost a pan across. That sold, they started getting inquiry, and then they were just funneling it to me. So I got a second wave, not as big as the Megan wave, but I got a second wave from all the people that were watching the television show going, oh my God, I want that artwork. Where do I get it? So,
and see, this is where you need like a Dennis Denuto style, brass plug as seen on TV.
That was when The Block used to be a good TV show, and it wasn't all about just creating drama. It was like, it was an interesting show to watch about renovating. And I
was watching it the other night. They were abusing them because they didn't put the PowerPoint in the right place, and I'm like,
it's it's going to be wanky,
mate. Run a lead, should be right. Use your laptop. But like, that's what they were grilling them on. I'm like, they built this in like a week. Having renovated myself. Man, it sucks.
It's
so
impossible.
Bad. It is impossible. Like oh my God, I would never do it again because it's horrible.
I think I stopped watching that show maybe 3 or 4 years ago when it just got to that point. It was all about, which is funny for us to say, it's all about brand placement, sponsorship, and everything. So,
and see, I'm down with brand placement, but like,
it's very literal.
There's a dance. Okay, so Megan Gale. The Block. How can it possibly get any bigger than that, Matty? What on earth could happen? How do you get bigger than that?
I think I went, and this is where our paths like really, I mean, we were always mates, but this is when we really interlocked as like working together again. So I think I had about 12 months of that, just, madness, like keeping up with orders from those previous 2 incidents, let's call them. And and still to this day, I still get work from that. Like I mean, we're talking like,
that's a few years ago now.
A few years ago. Yeah. Do you remember the year that we did the first collaboration? I'm trying to think back to.
Oh, mate, I reckon that was 2014. If I'm doing my math correctly.
Actually, 2014.
I actually looked them up yesterday, and I actually watched them.
Oh, okay. So 2014, I received an email from I can't remember her name now, but the email address was @disney.com.au.
I remember the name.
Do you?
Beck Hamilton.
Yeah. Okay. was Beck Hamilton. So I think it was even just Beck at Disney.
Yeah.
It was something really simple, and I, you know, I had to do a double take and just think, oh, cool scam, awesome, yeah. So,
as if,
yeah, I'm like, yeah, cool.
Turn it up.
So they, so I received this email. We are bringing the Lion King theatrical music event to the Lyric Theatre. We would like to celebrate the PR and the launch media around having some artworks created. So mind blown. Like this made the previous stories like, yeah. So here we have the biggest, actually, I think they were bigger than Apple at the time, the biggest business in the world.
Yeah.
Contacting me going, we want you, and not even the biggest, like the biggest creative.
Like, mate, it's Disney.
Yeah.
Like,
And you go, what? Hang on a minute. Like, I'm just like creating artworks in the valley in Brisbane. Like,
patent things.
Yeah. So it turned out to be real. Obviously, I said yes.
What?
And then they wanted to document it, and then there was not even a question.
And that's where
I think I was out of that meeting in about 30 seconds, and I was on the phone. I'm like, all right, we got this. I need you to,
And this is again the thing that you can't underplay is like the friendships and the people in your life, and because you altered the course of my life with that gift that came to you.
Yeah,
you shared that with me, and in turn that altered the course of my life.
Yeah. And see, at the time I wasn't even thinking that. I just thought,
no,
I've got this opportunity.
Kick ass.
They want to pay someone to do a production. I know the right people. They're going to do an awesome job. And then, and I wasn't thinking that it would turn into what I did for you guys.
No, mate, it was just one job.
It was just a mate to a mate going, they're really good. I trust them. So you need to trust them. Yeah.
And that was crazy. So tell me about that. Tell me what you did. Tell me the, what did you do for them?
Yeah. So, can you put links up on this later on?
Yeah, I can throw the links in the bottom.
Yeah. So there is a link which Scott will put up, which a TPR Media filmed and produced and documented. I painted. At the time, I wish it was somewhere different, but this is how they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
I painted 3 canvas artworks of the 3 main characters in my style, but had a bit of a Brisbane theme in it, had the river running through it. And I painted it in the very middle of Queen Street Mall, which is crazy. And I think they did it there because they were from Sydney. They didn't know any better. And I think they were kind of guided. They go like, where can everyone see it? And then someone from Brisbane Marketing went, middle of the mall, outside Hungry Jack's.
Straight outside Hungry Jack's. Because do you know what you get there? You get the very finest of what Brisbane has to offer.
You do. You get the art connoisseurs that appreciate
the
everything.
Art connoisseurs of Brisbane at Hungry Jack's.
We had an interesting time producing that, didn't we? We had all kinds of people. We had to get the police involved and good stories. But so I painted them there live, finished them, and took them back to the studio and did a couple of touch-ups.
Yeah.
And then they hung in as a 3-piece in the foyer of QPAC for the duration of the Lion King, which I think it was a long run, wasn't it?
It was. That was
because it was one of their biggest productions.
Lion King.
Like 12 months or something.
At that point in time, Lion King is the biggest thing Disney theatrical had ever done. Absolute monster.
Yeah, because now they turn up with Mary Poppins and they do like a 2-week run or something, but that thing was, or whatever they do now, that was massive.
That at the time, that was big, because that was when again musical theater really turned a corner, and there was less of full respect to Andrew Lloyd Webber, but there was less of that style, and then more of this new style of theatrical production, which again was very much led by the work of the Lion King at Disney.
Yeah. And I think for me, going back to when I said yes, I actually saw the Lion King theatrical production in Broadway in 2001 when I was there in New York. So I remember
that's like back when it started.
I think it was only a year or two into it, and
that was the start of.
Yeah, and it's even giving me goosebumps now just thinking about it. Like I, saw that, and I remember at that point going,
whoa,
oh my God, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen, because it was, I was a big fan of the movie growing up, and I saw it and just went, it's like the movie, but it's not like the movie, but it's that live performance gives it so
it's
much
special.
extra. Yeah. So coming into that, I already had that experience that, I'd already seen it and experienced it and so forth, even though it was a long time prior to that. Yeah. So, and that sort of, I painted that, and then we got the really cool benefits from going backstage and seeing all the costumes. I mean, you more so than me. I went a couple of times to QPAC and had a bit of a tour, but I know you can go on about that. You've spent a lot more time,
mate. This is the Matt
backstage.
Stewart show. This isn't my show. But yeah, I think the funniest part is that you got me involved in musical theatre, and truth be told, I didn't really know anything about musical theatre at that point in time. Now I am a connoisseur of the arts, but like my background was like motor racing.
Yeah,
and that was the funniest part.
Yeah,
but like I love the story in things, and our cinematographer Phil. I mean, he has just always had the most beautiful eye and the technical talent, and all the skill, of the actual execution of the work. But my fun part has always been the people, the stories, like exactly the same as like what we're doing right now. I'm fascinated by people. I'm fascinated by their stories. I'm fascinated by the journey. And that was the big thing with the work that I ended up doing with Disney Theatrical, is I was just blown away by the level that people work at. And this is actually the thing that I came to appreciate with it. And I'll jump off on a tangent because I love a good tangent. Working in like the international motorsport stuff, the thing that always blew me away was the people at the top of their game.
Yeah.
Like that. Much like a career in art, to choose a career in motorsport is not the smartest choice. You don't.
It's probably even more so because the expense involved is
You don't go there for family-friendly hours.
No.
You don't go there for the monster paycheck. You don't go there, for the sensible schedule or the working conditions or like racetrack food or like all of it is terrible. Like, you're sleeping in crappy motels, you're traveling, you're hot, you're tired, you're exhausted. And, if you physically work on the car, if something breaks, you're working through the night.
Oh, yeah.
And then you're working all the next day. And if it's a 24-hour race, you're not sleeping for 3 days.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible.
It's one of those careers where the glamour far outweighs the background.
It's Instagram influencers, like, that. It's like the glory shots are incredible.
Yeah.
Like, people look at it and go, oh my God. But the actual people doing it, man, they're working harder than anyone I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And the only way you end up there is because there is nothing else in this world that you would rather be doing.
Yeah.
The end.
Yeah.
And because of that, you get an extraordinary caliber of human who is, dedicated to their craft,
willing to put everything on the line to
everything, every day, every time. No matter how you are feeling, what's going on, the only thing that matters is you, the team, the race. And you give it everything you have got, and it can take you a week to recover. I don't know how Formula One teams do it, to be honest with you. I think that
back-to-back weekly races,
20-something races a year. I physically don't know how they do it. Like, it's terrible for families, relationships, all that sort of stuff. Like, mate, you're just away. And if the team needs something, like, bad luck. The team will get right of way. But again, coming back to it, it's the caliber of human. And I talked about this before with like our production teams and stuff. It's that same thing. When at the pinnacle of an industry, particularly where there is, some sort of artistic endeavor or some sort of creative endeavor or some sort of, it has to be a bad life choice. It's not, become an accountant, you'll get a government job, or, where you're just guaranteed to work for life. You've chosen to pursue something that means something to you, and you've got to work your ring out. And interestingly, that for me was also the point that I connected with in musical theatre, where the people that work on those shows, the actors back of house, like, mate, the people that work on those shows, like that is a brutal business,
isn't it? I know,
mate.
yeah,
8 shows a week,
yeah,
X
yeah,
number of months. You can be the star in the show, and then at the end of that run, like, you're unemployed again.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like, you
yeah,
out of a job.
yeah. There's nothing, and it's I was actually stunned when I found out how much the lead cast get paid. Not to
Yeah.
mention, the as it filters down
Yeah,
through
yeah.
stagehands and so forth, and everyone else involved in the production. But
Yeah.
it just goes back to saying, that they're doing it for the passion. They do
Mate,
it because they love what they
they
do, and
love
it's
it.
it's not a monetary thing.
No,
Yeah,
it's
they
because
get enough money to
Yeah.
get by, but they're not earning what you think
no,
they would be
like
earning.
it's not mega bucks.
No, no.
You're not going to the Bahamas and retiring after one show.
Yeah,
Like, you got to work,
yeah,
and you've got to build a profile, and you've got to do it over months, years, decades.
Yeah.
This all sounds familiar.
yeah,
But if you want to become
yeah,
one of the superstars of the industry, that is a massive commitment and a
Mhm.
massive journey. But that was the thing that just enthralled me initially about, because as somebody that had no background in theatre, like, I had no right to be there. When I look back and I laugh at it now, but like, that was the beauty that I saw in it.
Yeah, yeah. Isn't that funny? Because then you've continued on
Yeah.
in the production side of
bonkers.
it, like, but it's obviously that reason that sort of,
Totally.
I mean, obviously you're professional. You guys
Yeah.
do amazing things. You're very good at what you do, and that's a huge part of why you kept getting work
Yeah.
through these brands. But for someone going into it that had no background in it,
Nope.
you saw that sort of angle of it,
I
and then
saw
you
this
thought,
beauty
okay,
in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And that, I think, was actually part of the gift, and how a lot of that went so well
Mm-hmm.
was people end up in a bubble. And that was the thing that I sort of noticed, was they had a formula and they would just sort of do everything the same way.
Yeah, yeah,
And me, as Joe Average, I'd go, but why? If you're trying to talk to people like me,
yeah.
who are like, I could go, I could afford to go, but like, why? That was the thing that I wanted to dig into,
Mhm.
was, start looking at some of these beautiful stories in and around it, and just
Yeah.
start exploring those, and, really humanize it a little bit more, and make it less, less of just the, polished what you see on stage, but, getting to know the performers, and getting to
Mhm.
know the people back of house, and,
Yeah, yeah.
lifting the curtain on a lot of that stuff. Because in our earliest days, we actually weren't allowed to shoot like side of stage or back of house. Like, you just weren't allowed.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
absolutely not, which seems
Mhm.
crazy today.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
like, mate, if it was on the other side of the curtain, it was off limits.
yeah.
The only thing you're allowed to show was what was on the
What
stage,
audience would see.
and the
Yeah.
only footage you're allowed to use of what was on stage was like professional EPK footage.
Mhm.
Like, don't you dare be shooting things, and like,
Yeah, yeah,
it
yeah.
was so heavily controlled. But that storytelling side really took it to different places, and same way as anything else I've ever gone into, I just do stuff that I like,
Mhm.
and
Yeah, yeah.
it's much the same as what you do. Like,
Yeah.
you just do it for yourself. You go, what would I want to see? What would educate
Yeah,
me? What
yeah.
would entertain me?
Yeah.
And I've always found that to be a pretty good litmus test.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. And I think that shows when you actually look at, um, the production that you've done
Yeah.
surrounding all those performances as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, I dig it. Like,
Yeah.
I look
Yeah.
at it, and like, I'm proud. I'm like bursting with pride.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
To go, I can't believe that, like, we're allowed near this, let alone
Yeah.
actually film it. And like, I watch the work that, we've been responsible for producing. And I even go back, I watch the stuff that, we did for you back then. And like, it's still to this day. And I mean, it's years later, and it just,
It hasn't aged.
mate, it hasn't aged.
Yeah,
It's
it still
still
gives
beautiful.
it gives me goosebumps. Like, whenever I I've done a lot of donated a lot of artworks for
Yeah.
charity auctions and things like that over the years.
Yeah.
And normally they'll get me up and speak,
Yeah.
one-on-one, just to give it a bit of clout, and like, so people know what they're bidding for and so forth. But the one thing that I always give them, they're like, have you got a reel or anything like that?
Yeah.
I always give them the Cirque du Soleil video because
Yeah.
that gives me goosebumps.
That one's a
Still to
cracker.
this day, and I was there doing it. Like
Yeah.
it's
And that one was very special. And again, this is where, because again, no one person makes the magic happen.
Mhm.
But like in that instance, like, mate, Phil Scanlon had it. Like he went
Absolute
over
gun.
and above.
Yeah.
And the man, again, without him, none of these things would happen.
Yeah.
And he has worked his butt off. And we were just side by side in the trenches going, we don't know what we're doing, but man, we are going to smile and we are going to figure it out. And like, it's so crazy because I remember that time vividly because, when you were doing the Cirque du Soleil work, because it's go-between bridge. So, or what's it called?
The go-between bridge between Hale Street and West End. So there's leading up to that on the inbound lanes. There's 4 pillars on Coronation Drive. It's those ones. Yeah,
the 4 pillars between
the road and the bikeway.
So again, if you're a real Brisbaneite, you've driven past him. This is the dude. It was this guy. So the week that was being painted,
poured with rain.
It was in late April, and the reason I remember it to the day is that was when my son was born.
Oh, of course. Yeah, that's right. It was while we were producing it. Yeah,
I remember vividly.
Yeah.
Because like I was going to be there, and because
I
love being on the ground for the production.
Yep.
And my wife went into labor, and my son was born.
That's right.
And like the craziest thing is, we actually brought him, like, mate,
baby
fresh out of the oven. We actually brought him in a pram to that spot.
Yeah.
Like while you were still painting.
Yeah. I remember that. Yeah. I know.
Like crazy.
I mean, you even went out of your way. I think Ange, I don't know whether she's still in the hospital, but you came down. Like I was painting there.
Yeah.
Like to get that finished within the time frame, I needed to we're just going back a little bit, like logistically, they had a couple of options. They could either close the go-between bridge, because I had to be on a boom lift over the top of the road to paint some of it. And it was a little bit dangerous with buses coming across from West End and turning left onto Coronation Drive. So they either had to close it, which I think they would have, just on one way, they would have lost like 15, 20 grand's worth of tolls just for that amount of time. It was only like 4 hours or something. Or I had to wait till a certain amount of time at night. I think it was 8 o'clock or something, until the bus schedules went back to like every half hour. And when you'd see one, you'd move the boom lift out of the road. So I was there. I think Phil had gone home. I was there by myself, and you actually came down. Like,
I remember.
And shot some nice night shots.
I've actually got, I can actually see that photo in my head. I'd actually forgotten that I did that.
Yeah, it was cool.
Because I took a long exposure night shot of you with the boom lift. Oh man, I got to find that photo. Like,
I've got it somewhere.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
I'd totally forgotten about
that.
Yeah.
So you came.
Oh man, so I had a fresh
1
baby,
or 2. Yeah.
And wife at home.
2-day-old baby. Yeah.
And I've left because, oh man, I was not a great husband at that point, was I? But and this is where I talk about like commitment to the work.
Yeah. Yep.
I left a wife and fresh baby to go and do the work. And again, look, I don't. I look back at actually a lot of the stuff I did and how hard I was pushing at that point in time, and I actually regret it a lot.
Yeah.
I actually feel terrible. But like I was so single-minded on.
Not to be too hard on yourself. I think you came for maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours, and you were home again. So you weren't. It's not like you were spending the whole day there.
That was just one of many.
Okay.
Ask the boss. She'll remember.
All right. Yeah. She got them all noted down for future reference.
But like that was such a special, time. And I think the funny part with that is like that artwork was only really supposed to be up for the duration of the performance. Like,
Yeah.
But it's just become a part of the Brisbane skyline.
Well, you know what it actually became a part of? It was the very first artwork and the start of the Brisbane Laneway project. So
seriously?
Yeah. So the unofficially, it was the first artwork from that Brisbane street art. Yeah. So because in that particular project, I worked with Cirque du Soleil, obviously, who paid for the artwork, but also Brisbane City Council on securing. They did. They were
because they had to find a location.
Yeah, yeah, they're the ones
I
that came.
remember that.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because I remember going and doing the initial meeting there. We've
Yeah,
actually got a photo of all
yeah,
of us,
yeah.
like standing there looking at it, looking at these columns. And I'm
Yep.
there going, mate, how are you going to do this?
Yeah, they're 11 meters tall, and
I'm like, dude, because
yeah, it was.
you even like talk about full commitment. You actually got the
I
license
had to get a
to
licensed
drive
operator
the
boom
boom.
lift. Yeah,
So
yeah,
like you're working at heights and all that
yeah,
sort of stuff.
yeah,
And
yeah,
again, like that's full
yeah,
commitment.
yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah. There was no other way to produce it. Like
no,
I couldn't get a scissor lift in there,
no.
which I would have needed a license for anyway. But to get up and over the road and then to maneuver
Yeah.
around and stuff, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
you're
the
not
only
getting up
thing
there
I
with
could.
a ladder.
No,
Like-
no, no. I get halfway up, the bottom half of the poles are painted, and that's it.
Because it's hard to get a scale on how big those are unless you stand underneath them and like look
Yeah,
up.
from the road they just look like normal pylons, but
Yeah.
you
When you
you
stand,
stand next to them, they're like, yeah,
Right.
yeah,
That is
yeah. I think they're
massive.
about 3 meters in circumference, so you can't even put your
Yeah,
arms, stretch your arms around them. Like they're crazy.
That's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so now, and you go, how can I possibly get any bigger than this? Ridiculous. So yeah, you're working for Disney, you're doing street art, you, mate, it's a crazy story, isn't it? You
Mm.
know, where did it go after that? What happened? What's the next evolution?
I think from that it feels like a blur.
I remember you going into the prints.
Yeah, yeah.
Was
I
that-
think the prints were a strategic
Yeah,
point from I think
trying
I
to
think
commercialize the art.
yeah,
a
yeah. I
bit
think
better
from
than one
that
piece
point
at a time.
I was trying to I went, okay, cool. Well, this is a business.
Yeah.
Like it's actually
Yeah,
going to go
it's a
somewhere.
real thing.
Yeah, yeah. So then I started looking at it like that. I think up
Yeah,
until then
yeah,
I
what
was
can I
like,
do?
oh yeah, I'm just painting, and
Yeah.
it kind of is what it is.
Making
Yeah,
the things.
yeah, yeah. So I started to take things a lot more seriously and run it. Like with social media and so forth, and really start focusing on how I was posting, have my imagery right on Instagram, like making sure I kept everything clean and polished and, but still authentic at the same time. Nothing's filtered. Like any artwork I put up is color perfect and so forth. So I started to really look at it like a business. And then, and one of those things was artwork prints, because I had a lot of inquiry from people saying, because I think at that time my artwork started at 2.5, whereas now they start at 3.5 and go up. And I think a lot of people were coming to me. I was still selling a lot of artworks, but they were coming to me asking, do you do anything smaller? Do you do anything cheaper? Do you do prints?
Bit spicy for my first piece.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's I just took that feedback on board and went, okay, well, what if I did limited editions of artwork prints? And at that point I was purely just taking photographs of the artworks, high-res photos, and cleaning them all up in Photoshop and then turning them into A1 artwork pieces, individually signed, numbered, and embossed stamp on them. And you bought one of that time. I was doing runs of 250. I've scaled back now to one of 50.
I remember, but you're also doing like the hand foil and stuff. Like, there was a heap of work.
There was,
piece,
like, but I was also selling them for a lot more too. So, but that worked out really well. So what I would see was someone would purchase a print, and then maybe anywhere from sort of 6 months to 2 years later would come back and go, okay, now I'm in a better position financially. I can afford a canvas artwork or a mural or anything. So it was a good way of getting them into my brand.
That's weird.
Getting them introduced. And then I have customers now that have on their 3rd or 4th piece that started with an art print.
Isn't that awesome?
Yeah.
It's actually really beautiful. Like,
I did it out of a business
piece.
point of view, but it's very humbling to know that they've gone, okay, well, that's
but it's a reflection that they've looked at that in their house. That work has brought them so much joy over that time that they've come back and gone, I'd like another slice of that.
That's
actually really cool, mate. That's like when you get a great sausage roll.
Oh,
it's
a good analogy.
And you just got to go back to that bakery.
You got to get the pie next.
Mate, so good. All right, sorry, I've got to back myself out of that one. Now I just want a sausage roll.
It's like an early lunchtime. Oh, it's nearly lunchtime.
Mate, I'm hanging. All right, so we've gone on past the art prints. Like, your life's obviously evolving a fair bit more at this time. You're now married. You guys have where are we up to in the creative journey?
At that point, really just I'm just at the point of building a business and
Yeah.
taking orders really, and I'm
Yeah.
just uh, at that point I hadn't really looked at doing a lot of commercial or residential murals. I'd done a couple here and there.
That's right. That was the beginning of the dance.
Yeah,
Of becoming, because most of your work had been like on canvas.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that was, I
yeah.
guess, your first. Was it? I don't know. Was that your first sort of big scale mural, or had you
Yeah,
done some?
oh, definitely. That's
Certainly the
it's
biggest.
definitely the biggest I painted. Yeah, that was my first, large scale mural.
Yeah,
Yeah,
first large scale mural.
yeah.
And then you started getting calls for more,
Hmm.
because I've obviously seen quite a lot of them, and I've been a guest at a number of them.
Hmm.
Where businesses started getting you in, to do a big, beautiful artwork. And something that I've always enjoyed, um, and I hope you won't mind me sharing this, is that how you have the capacity as a designer, as a graphic artist, as a painter, where you can actually take a concept, you can design a concept, and actually present that to them because of your suite of skills.
Yeah, yeah,
So that it's not just some dude that's just going to like rip out some tags. Like, they actually get to see and visualize the whole mural,
yeah, yeah.
before you actually go in and hand paint it.
Absolutely, and I think that's my. I know other artists do it, but not to the extent that I do. I think that's the why I have become successful in the commercial realm, definitely with businesses, because
Yeah.
I'll have my initial site visit. I'll take photos of the space that it's going on to. I'll create the concept to suit that space, and then it'll be superimposed onto that wall or that space in Photoshop. So what you're seeing is an end result is 90, apart from a few paint drips here and there, is you're
Yeah.
basically signing off on
On
what
the
you will
finished
get as the
artwork.
finished artwork. So it takes that guesswork out and makes businesses feel a little bit more
Well, that's it.
secure.
Because for a business, and I say the same thing when I'm talking about sponsorship or PR or anything else.
Mm.
Like, businesses are generally not willing to gamble.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, of
they
course.
need to be
Yeah.
very sure on the outcome.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when it comes to something like this, it might could seem a bit wild. Like, we're going to get this artist to paint this thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas you can remove all that risk by being able to create that stuff on a computer first.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which it does, doesn't it? It makes perfect sense as to why it's been so commercially successful for you, because you've got that business nous where you understand all those little finesse things of business that, if you were just an artist out of the gates, you might not understand. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I think one thing that I do still get to this day, it's not so much anymore, but I still get people um, not blown away, but sort of taken aback a little bit about how professional I am. The comments like, "Oh, I thought we were just going to get a pencil sketch on paper," or "How do you do this? Do you sketch it up first?" I'm like, "No, it's a little bit more detail than
Bit
that."
more
Like,
involved than that.
and when I explain it to them, they're really surprised at how polished it is as a finished product and also as a concept. And then 80% of the murals that I paint, like this comment will come by, they'll go, "Oh wow, it looks exactly like the thing that we approved." Yep.
And you're like, gee, what a shocker.
Yeah,
That was literally the plan.
Yeah, yeah. So, and to what you said earlier on, it's that looking back at my career to an extent, is like those everything that I have done has led up to this point. So although I'm an artist painting walls and painting canvases, like those skill sets that I've had over that decade, I use every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it all just makes sense.
Yeah.
Connecting those dots. As
Yeah.
That's just wild. And look, that I think, unless I'm missing anything, that basically brings us up to the current day, doesn't it?
Pretty much.
Because, people are still, you do limited runs of prints, you're still doing, your own artwork plus commissions, and then you're doing murals.
Yep.
Am I pretty close?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah. I did a
close to the
clothing
mark?
range during COVID, like just a limited run, and that went really well. But then the logistics of it and like all that sort of stuff, it's like,
man. Making stuff in bulk is like so hard.
it's hard. Yeah.
Like, anyone that does that stuff, people are like, I'm going to start a clothing brand. I'm like, have fun.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a lot of so much, like anything. I mean, even though it's an offshoot of my brand, you're still starting a new brand.
Totally.
Like you're starting something new. And
from scratch every time.
Yeah. But having said that, I still have clients that have ordered murals and artworks from me that started with a t-shirt during that time. So it kind of did its own thing and worked a treat. And it's something I always wanted to do. So it kind of ticked that box that I always wanted to do something in a clothing range. And it was only a limited run. But
well, that's it. And it gave you a chance to try it. And I think that's part of the fun is you got to just keep trying all these things, don't you? Like there's no sense in, just thinking about it. You got to try it and see, because you might you might like it. You actually might like that process that I view as a nightmare.
Oh, that's crazy. Like I did love it. Like it's, coming up with the branded packaging and, everything that goes along with it. Like, that's the core of me. So I love that part of it, but it took up a lot of time that I could have been producing other artworks and
And then obviously you've had a total life change because, as a Brisbane through and through, you've made the change.
Made the sea change. And we're only not even 6 months into it.
Far out.
I think it all started on Boxing Day last year. Anna and I, my wife and I, just sat down, we had a glass of red each, and we were just like, we'd always wanted to move to the Sunshine Coast. But I think in our minds, we had a beautiful house in Brookfield, and we ticked all the boxes that we wanted to do. But in our mind, we're thinking, oh, we need the same sort of house at the coast, and that's like, the market up there is skyrocketing, so it was double the price of what our house was worth, and we weren't ready to take a plunge like that. And and then that conversation led to us going, well, we don't need that. Let's simplify. Let's sell while the market's hot. And we made really good money on our house. And then, we live a 5-minute walk to the beach. We've simplified our life. It's amazing.
So you even sound relaxed when you talk about it. It actually makes me feel
so relaxed. We were watching, not necessarily this week, but the last 2-3 weeks, we grab a coffee in the morning, go down, sit by the beach, and you watch whales playing a couple of hundred meters off the beach. Like there's something, even when they're not there, like there's something really grounding. I know everyone says it and it sounds a bit hippie-ish, but just being by the ocean in the morning, it's like the power that it has. It makes you feel tiny.
Insignificant.
And it grounds you. You think, okay, cool. Well, I'm really nothing. So let's start my day. And it's that feel. I equate it to that feeling of, when you haven't flown in a plane for a while, and you go on a trip and you got your window seat and you take off and you look out and you go, oh my God, look at this city that we live in. It's tiny. And that's only one little speck on the planet. And then that makes you feel really insignificant and small, but in a good way. Like, it humbles you.
So it's been a good change. And
it's been a really good change.
And what's next? What are you tinkering with?
The idea was to try and slow down business a little bit, but I've actually gotten busier since I moved up there. I've got a lot of clients moving from Melbourne up to the Eastern Beaches and Noosa. And so they're all like, okay, we've got a house. Now we need a mural and this artwork. And so I can't complain. It's good, but I'm trying to just, I'm still playing catch up from when we moved in, and we were renovating and all that sort of stuff. So I think going into the new year, I can, once all that's finished, I can start to take back life a little bit, which is the whole idea of moving up there, and start to space projects out. And I think I said this to you the other day. The reason I wanted to do this was to play a little bit with my art, because I'm, producing works for orders, even though I'm creating them and creating the concepts. It doesn't allow me that much time to actually just be silly and play with the artwork. And I think that's something that I miss.
You got to do stuff for the fun of it.
Yeah.
Just for the joy.
Even if it doesn't work out, you just do it and you go, oh, the beauty of what I do is like I let the paint dry and you paint over it.
I've reflected on this a lot. It's one of the craziest things. Like I always think back to like when I was shooting for free and just doing it for fun and like just turning up.
They're probably your best days.
Oh man, turning up every week because I loved it.
Yeah.
Like, and there was no reward. There was no financial reward.
Yeah.
Like you're just burning time.
Mm-hmm.
But like they're the best days, and you have a creative freedom that doesn't exist when you're working commercially.
Yeah.
Because you can push the boundaries, but when you're just doing something for you, like it's just whatever you want,
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
you feel like.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I've found myself trying to chase that again more recently.
Yeah.
Over more recent years, as we've become, more successful commercially, and I do a lot more of that style of work, much the same as yourself, where I long for, just doing it just cause.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
because I want to, because it's fun, because I like it.
Yeah. I don't, and I think my position at the moment is I don't have, I could probably count on one hand the amount of clients, especially in the last couple of years, that just give me 100% creative freedom.
Full trust.
Do what you think, because I
Whatever you
trust you. One of them is our mutual friend, Liam Talbot, who you mentioned earlier on. Like LT just said, built a new garage and said, I want 10 artworks. You do what you think. You know me.
Let it rip.
They turned out amazing. And he loves them because he's, confident enough with my ability to come up with exactly, and knowing him well enough to go, yep, these are going to be perfect for what you need. And he loves them. Absolutely.
And it looks good. I've seen the art in the space.
Yeah.
Kick ass.
And they're fun, those things where you have full creative freedom, and not to dismiss any of the work that I do commercially, because you're still creating something that's 85 to 90% of absolutely.
It's a selfish artist thing.
It is.
It's nothing more than that. It's just that there's
even if there's a mild tweak from the clients, like, well, it's not entirely mine.
It's not all mine, because there's a purity to your work. Yeah. When it's just whatever you want. Yeah. And like I dig that. I guess it's the rebelliousness in me. It's the the cavalier attitude of you're not telling me what to do.
Do you not trust me?
Like I don't know.
No, I know, and I
resonate with it. Like and I think it's important to say that I am so grateful that people pay me to do this stuff.
Yeah, of course.
Like, beyond grateful.
I'm the same.
But I think it's important, as an artist, as a creative, if you're not being true to yourself, and again, just making stuff for you that brings you joy, that makes you smile, I don't think you can progress as an artist. I think that there just has to be a part of that in what you do, that allows you to push. And, what we're doing here at the moment is, pushing me as a creator, because I'm floundering, trying to make all this stuff work.
You're doing well.
And again, you saw it when we turned up, mate, nothing was working, nothing was plugged in, literally nothing worked.
Yeah.
Because, I'm stills photographer is how I would refer to myself if anybody ever asked. That's the thing that, I am madly obsessed with, even though I do a lot of work in and around, video, audio, all sorts of other things. I love the purity of a still image of a moment in time that cannot be recreated. It cannot be redone. Once it's done, it's past.
Yeah.
Whereas, with video, there is a lot more, manipulation of time and space. You can put moments together that were not sequential. And I think as I've thought about it over time, that's what I've really enjoyed with the motorsport stuff. That, there's a huge intensity. There's a massive time pressure. And once that moment is gone, it's gone forever. Yeah. And, there's just an exquisite purity in getting the right angle, the right lens, the right camera, the right, the sun in the right place. When all these factors that have to come together.
And you're under a strict time frame too.
Very strict time
within
frame.
Seconds sometimes.
Yeah. So, you've got to be so accurate technically. And, when you get it right, oh man. It's the best. That photo over your shoulder of the Aston Martins there.
Yeah.
I can vividly recall taking those shots. I was hanging out the back of a car.
I was going to say, were you hanging out the back of a van?
I was hanging out the back of a car, and it was just a tiny little car.
Everyone see that?
Think Hyundai Getz sort of size. And so if you probably can't see it, but what that car is that's the Aston Martin Vulcan, which was Aston Martin's hypercar. And I was able to go there when they were developing the car. So that's car number one. And we were there with Aston's R&D engineers, technical team, and they were literally testing the car. And so in that photo is the Vulcan up front, driven by our mutual friend. Then it is flanked by 2 Aston Martin GT3 race cars, and then you can't even see the 4th car in that shot, but behind that V formation is an Aston Martin 177. Like, so to say that that was an extraordinary moment in time,
a lot of money in that
man,
shot.
because, you know, on top of that, we're at Bernie Ecclestone's racetrack.
Yeah.
We're staying at Bernie's hotel at Circuit Paul Ricard in the south of France. So, you know, like, wild.
Yeah.
And, you know, that photo, to get that moment hanging out the back of a car, so you've got your arm around one seatbelt holding onto it, then you're operating your camera with one hand holding onto it with, you know, 4 fingers, and working it and framing it, and, you know, you're doing a little bit of machine gun work there to try and get it right. But that shot was also shot, you know, at a slower rate, slower frame rate, so you could get, you know, some motion in the shot.
Yeah.
And, you know, like, those cars are at pace. And so to get that shot with the Paul Ricard banner in the background, with the cars in frame at the right height, with the camera low enough, man, like, the intensity of that moment, getting that shot is like through the roof.
Yeah.
And do you know the crazy part? Hanging out of the boot was actually me and another photographer. So it wasn't just me. There's like me and another dude
in the boot of a
of a little hatchback, hanging out trying to shoot. So again, as I say, the other side of the shot is never very glamorous.
Yeah.
But like, just mind blowing.
Yeah. But see, you had so much fun doing it.
So much fun.
Yeah.
Like, the best moments of my life, all this stuff. Like,
Yeah,
all these things that we've done, and the stuff that we've made, and the stuff that we get to do together, and the stuff that we've got to do with our friends. Like, that was a big part of why I even thought that, like, this, what we're doing here might be interesting, is like just the craziness of some of the things that we've got to do by, you know, persistence and blind luck, you know, backed up by we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
Should be right. Like, even now, I said to my wife, like, I'm doing a crazy thing that I can't even talk about yet. And I said to my wife, I said, look, as long as I don't shit the bed, this will be incredible. And the funny thing is that's pretty much exactly what I've said every time that I've had one of these, like, just insane opportunities for, like, global brands, ridiculous moments where it's like bulk stress. And, like, if you cock it up, it is like game over.
Yeah.
But, like, for whatever reason, you don't cock it up, and, you know, you do a good job.
Yeah.
And then something else crazy happens.
Yeah. It's another notch on your trust belt as well. It's like, that's when you just bring more brands in and they go, well, you did it for,
because you're like, I got this.
You did it for Disney, you did it for these guys. Like,
And, like, it's stressful, but it's no stress. And I've come to appreciate that the stress is actually just the preparation.
Yeah.
And if you're not stressed, you actually probably won't do a good job.
Yeah.
So, like, if you're peaking, like peak anxiety, that is actually the mental preparation. And, you know, you're working through all the possibilities of what may or may not happen.
Yeah.
So that when that moment comes and you need to be exceptional, you know, in this tiny, tight, complex period of time, you got this.
Yeah. I agree 100% with that. I do the same with my murals. Like, I'll visually paint them, because, you know, I would have been to site at least once, sometimes twice. I'll visually paint them in my mind maybe 2 or 3 times, like, you know, a few days leading up, the drive to, if I've got a bit of time, or the flight to wherever I'm doing it. So you know, you can expect things to go wrong. And if they do, you're ready to tackle them, because a lot of the time I'm balancing on ladders for hours on end, and, you know, I don't have time to, you know, to stress about something going wrong, or
so figure it out.
I want to have fun while I'm doing it too. Because that's when your best work comes out. And if you can tackle those hurdles before you actually get to site,
and still have a wicked time, and still have that same, and this is the same one, like, you know, bringing that massive energy, where you're just pumped, pumped.
And that's how you get your best work, is just bringing the best of yourself.
Now, Matty, I reckon we've got to be somewhere near the end, because holy mackerel, we've been talking for an incredibly long time. And, man, if anybody's listened this long, I'm blown away. Thank you for
thank you very much to those.
Matty, is there anything else you wanted to cover before we start winding this up?
I think we've covered everything. Like, I don't think I've ever spoken about my career for that long. Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah. It's been fun. It's gone very fast.
Dude, hasn't it? Like, it is 20 past 11. We started this at 9:06.
Wow.
That is, and there's, that is massive.
You can see how they make these 3-hour podcasts.
Oh, you can. I've always wondered. I'm like, how on earth do you sit there for that long? But like,
well, I could go for another hour or
mate,
two.
I could easily keep going. That's why we probably got to go to lunch after this.
Yeah.
But look, Matty, for people that want to find out more about you, where can they go? What's the website? What's the socials?
Website is mattstewartart.com. So MATTSTEWART. And socials are Matt Stewart Creative on both Facebook and Instagram.
And we'll slap some links in the show notes here so that people can just click on those and have a look. But Matty, I've got to thank you for coming and spending this time with me and being like my first official guest. We're going to look back on this in 2 years and go, that was the moment.
It was, that
was the moment where the show, turned a corner, because I had my first guest in the studio, and because of you going, oh man, I'll just come into your office. And I'm like, that I had to go and buy all these things to make it a 2-person in the room show. And it's
worked perfectly. There you go.
Mate, it's worked.
Yep.
Bumps.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks for having me.
Oh, well, I think that's the end of it. We're going to wrap it up here. I'm going to put all the details underneath, so you'll actually be able to, find Matty's stuff, check out some of the videos, see some of the wicked stuff he's done. Because check it out. Like, even if you don't even know what you like in art, have a look. You'll learn something. That's it for today. Thanks for listening. Catch you next time.